There's so much fear out there right now about what's going on in the world, about all the chaos that's supposedly coming or happening. And if you're a spiritual being going through this transition, it can be very difficult for the human. In this video, I'm going to be explaining exactly why you don't need to be afraid. And I'm going to be giving you some very specific tools that you can use to help yourself get into the energy of abundance and out of your negative states when you're kind of stuck in those places in between fear and being able to really embrace the positivity. So stay tuned. My name's Adam. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I help people heal on all levels multidimensionally. Before we get started, I just want to let you know I'm doing some free breakthrough calls. There's a link pinned in the comment section below. It's a 30-minute call where we get on Zoom and I just help you go over all your blocks, your struggles, where you're held up and not able to move forward in your life. And then I help you find some solutions to help you get into your highest vision and timeline. We do live in difficult times. You can't deny that. A lot of the world is going like super crazy. But we hear a lot about this timeline split. 3D, 5D. One group's going more into destruction. One group is going more into creation. Okay, so let's focus on the positive aspects of this. All you really need to do is to just sort of notice there is a group in 3D that's not doing the work. They're not looking at themselves. They're not evolving spiritually. They're not taking any action, which doesn't need to be all scary. A lot of us are scared of action. All you need to do is just kind of notice that that's one timeline. And if you don't want to be on that timeline, I would say you're not. If you're watching this and you're like, I don't want to go down with that ship, I would say you're not. We have to create the belief and the vision that those doing the work are going to be not just okay. You're not going to need to put your seatbelt on and the fucking roller coaster is going to fly off the track and you're going to crash and fucking holes are going to open up in the ground and nuclear bombs are going to rain down, but you're barely going to survive like a fucking cockroach. No, we need to hold the vision, because we're all creating this, that it actually can be really wonderful and great and pretty easy. So all you need to do is just be like, yeah, I'm not on that timeline. There's so much abundance, and we all have a hard time with abundance. We all have a hard time when you can't pay your bills and you don't know if you're going to eat next month, imagining what it feels like to be super rich and wealthy. And then if you can't, you become afraid that you're not going to manifest the money. Fuck all that. Fuck it. You can be worried and still create abundance. Why? Because you can create any belief system that you want. So start focusing on that. Whoever took over this planet was able to invert reality so much that all of the laws of our world make no sense whatsoever as far as how creation actually works. Well, we kind of need the reverse of that, so we're going to have to create it. It's like the kids that go to bowl and they need the little flated like bumper raft things on the gutter so that they never get a gutter ball. We need that coming out the other side. So we're just going to have to create it. And here's an idea. If you have trouble feeling the energy of abundance, first off, a good thing to question is, are you associating abundance only with money? And I know when you're in survival terror, it's hard not to be thinking of money. It's hard to be like, oh, I'm so abundant in spirit, even though I think I'm going to starve to death and lose my apartment. I know. But what you can always do, this is the thing, you can always invert a concept. And I'll show you what I mean. If you have a lot of anger, or let's just say you have a lot of hatred, if you can start to do something like this, like I love my hatred, even if it doesn't work at first, what you're doing is you're taking the energy of hatred and you're kind of infusing it into a field of love. And it starts to neutralize and it starts to dissolve. Resisting your negative thoughts is the worst thing you can do. If you have a negative thought, don't try to skip over to a positive thought and stick the freaking negative thought up your butt and hide it, okay? It doesn't work. Just be, one thing you can do is be like, it's okay that I have this negative thought. I'm going to get to the rest of my point in a second. I am, though. It's okay that I have this negative thought. I am not this negative thought. I am the being behind all of the thoughts. No thought is actually negative. There is no negative on a high enough plane. So stop being freaked out by your negative thoughts. Like Chinese finger cuffs, the more you struggle, the worse it gets. Most of your negative thoughts won't come true. Most of your negative thoughts, you can keep thinking and you can still manifest positive things. Just keep believing that. You can invert anything. If you have negative thoughts, just be like, oh, this is cool, I have a negative thought. The other thing to do when you have negative thoughts is you want to research where they're coming from. Like the best thing you can do is become your own like consciousness detective. If you keep having a negative thought, it's coming from somewhere. It's coming from something that happened to you as a child. It's coming from imprints in your DNA. It's coming from past lives. When you become a master at being like a detective with this stuff, you can start to unravel all of these things. And I have other videos on how to do that. But for today, I want to talk about abundance a little more. This is something I've been working on recently. The thing to understand with abundance is there only is abundance. Spirit is everything. Spirit is the positive. Spirit is the negative. Spirit is the light. Spirit is the dark. So there's an abundance of spirit all the time. When you see spirit as abundant, you start to resonate with abundance. When we only think of abundance as financial security, and I get that we all need that to an extent, we're actually not thinking abundantly because we're thinking in a very limited way. We're thinking abundance is only this. Abundance is everything. So what do you have an abundance of right now? And this goes back to like loving your hatred. Maybe you have an abundance of anxiety. Maybe you have an abundance of negative thoughts. Maybe you have an abundance of fear. You have an abundance of poverty consciousness. You got so much poverty consciousness right now. You got so much anxiety. You are abundant as fuck. It's just that your abundance is in the bank account of anxiety, fear, trauma, poverty, lack. But when you see that it's there, you now see abundance. You might have an abundance of health issues. Just keep repeating that. I have an abundance of anxiety. And what you're doing is you're hitting on the energy field of abundance and you're hitting on the energy field of anxiety and you're neutralizing them. You're inverting it. It's also your intention. The words are meaningless pretty much, except for the fact that there's a collective field that you tap into when you use a particular word, if you're not conscious of it, that has like an overall imprint of what we all collectively think that that word means. But you can override that if you're aware of it. So be very aware of what you're doing when you're using the terms and what it means to you. And as you go up this, you want to do this as you go up the scale. Like, you know, if you start to feel like well, I don't want to be saying I have an abundance of health issues anymore, and you're starting to feel better, then you can go into I have an abundance of love. I have an, obviously don't stay in the health issue thing, but it's like how you kind of bridge yourself out of it. It's like another example is every healing comes in layers. Like I've talked about this before, but like in 12-step programs, they have you repeat over and over again, I am an addict. Now, after you have a year, 2 years, 3 years, that's a fucking horrible thing to repeat. But at first, it's really good because you're in such a lower state of consciousness that the admission of that, the owning of it is rising you. It's bringing your frequency up by being honest with yourself. And you're going from complete denial and shutdown into openness and embracing of something, and it starts to dissolve. You will then, so if you don't feel a resonance anymore, you don't want to keep saying that. At some point, you get like clearer and clearer and clearer, and you get up the scale in consciousness. And now to say, I am an addict is bringing you down, and it's creating a ceiling. It's dimensional. You want to really deeply understand this concept, which very few people do, in my opinion. And you can only really know the truth of this by knowing where you are and feeling it. You'll feel like this sort of resonant energy. It's what you call the healing vortex or the truth vortex. And that's where these things work. These inversion of concepts work when you're in those sort of seesaw battle states. I just want to make that clear. This really works. You have to build it a little bit, but it helps because you can use your negative emotions. Like I will do this. Like sometimes the way to clear anything is to validate. You have to completely own it and validate it. People don't want to state the negative thoughts or the negative emotions because they're afraid they're going to recreate it. If you're completely honest with yourself and you're in your body and you state them honestly, they start to dissolve because you're bringing them into the moment, and there only is infinite love. So one thing I've been doing is when I'm in a really negative state and I can't get out of it, I start doing something that I like to call sarcastic gratitude. So I'll be like, I am so fucking grateful that I keep working and working and working and working and getting nowhere. But if you're connected enough to your body when you do this, you're conjuring up the energy of gratitude, and you're conjuring up all the negativity at the same time, and it starts to neutralize. I'm serious. Play around with this. Because you can't just go like, I'm so angry, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful. It doesn't work. No one can do that. Not no one, but most people can't. I can't. It's too much of a shift, and you're suppressing things. You're stuffing them into a drawer, and then they get bigger. So be a sarcastic brat with your negativity, but in gratitude. And you'll feel kind of angry, maybe. I do. I'll get angry. Be like, I'm grateful for, and I don't fully mean it, but it still works. And if you keep repeating it, it kind of feels good. It becomes cathartic. I'm so grateful that life has been so difficult. Because what the other thing that you're doing, see, anger, there's nothing, we demonize every emotion, every negative emotion. We have a judgment about it. Anger is just an energy, right? It's just an energy force. But anger has a very positive use. You can use anger, you can even use rage to remove blocks. Sometimes I feel like my anger will go into really dark spaces in my body, and like a fire just start to push things that don't fit there anymore out. And when you kind of combine that with the energy of gratitude in this weird way, it's like you're harvesting your anger as a source to like burn out itself and the negative aspects of itself. Sometimes we need the negativity to move things. Sometimes you need to scream really loud at a group of people to get them to snap out of their trance. It's not all negative. I felt a lot of shame around my anger for a long time, and I had this one guy that I worked with for a number of years who told me this story, because it was kind of like part of how I am, about one of his friends who said he just had this. He was a very fiery person, and he had this kind of anger, but it was a very heart-centered anger. And he said what would happen is, like, he'd be around a group of people, and all of a sudden the guy would just kind of snap and like tear into something in the room, and everyone would get really kind of shocked and freaked out. But after he did that, it's like this love would come out of his heart and just kind of smooth everything over. And what he was doing, it's like a dragon just breathing fire at something that doesn't hold a place anymore. And then it like removes that layer, and then you harmonize it. If you don't have your heart open enough, like I was saying, if you're not working with gratitude on some level, or love on some level, then you can just be in a really dark place of like unconscious anger, and that's not necessarily a super good thing. But if you start to work with these other aspects, it makes a big difference. So see how that goes. Just experiment with that. Things being hard, or needing to be hard, or being chaotic, that's just all a belief. Maybe things aren't getting chaotic. Maybe they're not getting chaotic at all. Maybe there's nothing chaotic going on right now at all. Maybe things are getting easier. Maybe things are getting more chaotic for the people who have no awareness. But they're not getting more chaotic for you. They're getting easier for you. Anyway, let me know how this goes. Please let me know if you have any questions, comments, revelations, breakthroughs. Thank you so much for watching. I always appreciate everybody who watches my videos. Other than that, I look forward to next time, and bye-bye.